Kia ora, good morning everyone, Richborn here. Today we are looking at another new lens from TTArtisan. This is the TTArtisan 23mm f1.8. It is an autofocus lens for APS-C cameras. It will be available for Nikon Z, Sony E and Fuji X. The price is only US $127, which makes it one of the cheapest autofocus lenses in the market. As usual, I've done a lot of testing and I will share with you all my results, thoughts and some real-world photos that I shot with this lens. Before we start, I want to tell you the lens sample I used in this review was sent to me by TTArtisan and I do not have to return the sample after this review. But I also did not receive any money for this review. I do have an affiliate link in the video description below if you want to purchase this product and support me. I just want to make sure everything is clear before we start. We'll start this review by looking at the image sharpness of this TTArtisan lens. All the test photos in this review were shot with the 40MP Fujifilm X-H2 in RAW format and then convert to JPEG using Adobe Lightroom using default settings. At the maximum aperture f1.8, the center of the photo is very sharp already. Because of that, stopping down the lens only marginally improved the center sharpness until f11 when diffraction starting to soften the image. Corner is quite soft at wide open and the corner only starting to become sharp once we reach f5.6. So overall, for my test results, center sharpness is excellent, corner not so much. This lens minimum focus distance is 30 cm. The maximum magnification ratio is around 0.1 time from my measurements. So these figures are quite similar to a lot of 23mm third-party lenses in the market, but there are other APS-C lenses like the Fujifilm XF 23mm f2.WR that has much higher magnification. I also noticed photos shot at f1.8 at the minimum focus distance is a bit soft. I have to stop down the lens a bit to get sharper image. Here are some photos I shot at f1.8 and let's have a look at the background. With the fast f1.8 maximum aperture, we can dissolve the background quite a bit when shooting close-up portrait and other photos where the subject is at close distance. The bokeh looks alright. I do see a bit of halo ring around the bokeh ball in some of the photos, and then there can also be some cat's eye bokeh as well. When shooting close-up photos, even at f2.8, the bokeh balls at the corner still have a bit of clipping, which I personally don't mind. In case you are also considering one of the 23mm f1.4 lens from other brands, as you want to get more shallow depth of field, here are two photos I shot, one with the TTArtisan at f1.8 and one with the Yongnuo 23 1.4 that I just reviewed last week at f1.4. So you can see the difference in terms of background blur between f1.4 and 1.8. Now since the Yongnuo I got is for E-mount while the TTArtisan is for Fuji, so these photos were shot using different cameras. Because of that, don't pay too much attention to things like colors or contrast, as these are affected quite a bit by the camera. When I convert the RAW files using Lightroom, if I have enabled the profile correction, I can still see noticeable vignetting at wide open. Even at f2.8, while vignetting is not as strong, it is still quite noticeable. Vignetting becomes much better from f4 onwards, but there is still some minor vignetting even if you stop down all the way to f16. If I disable Lightroom's profile correction, then vignetting will be even more noticeable now. Chromatic aberration control is good. I don't see too much color fringing in most of my photos, including some photos with very high contrast. My local test photos also look very good with almost no color fringing at all. Let's have a look at distortion now. This lens has some minor barrel distortion. It is quite minor, but if there are some horizontal lines near the top or the bottom of the photo, then you may notice it. I used to complain TTArtisan's lens flare performance quite a lot on this channel, but it seems like this is something that I will be doing a lot less in the future. Just over the last few months, I saw TTArtisan has made some noticeable improvements in this area. And this is the same with this latest 23mm lens. The amount of lens flare is now at a very acceptable level. I still see a bit of lens flare when shooting directly into the sun, but for a lens at this price, it is completely acceptable. The lens flare and ghosting don't really ruin any of my photo, and the contrast also remains very good. You just need to stop down the lens to around f5.6 and you can see some Sunstars already. At f8, the 18-point Sunstars already look pretty nice. I think these TTArtisan lens Sunstars are quite beautiful. Autofocus is quite fast and very quiet. I almost cannot hear any autofocus noise at all. The aperture actually makes louder noise when the lens is focusing and when the camera needs to change the aperture value. When shooting video, continuous autofocus works very well. I don't hear any autofocus noise at all, and the autofocus is very responsive with my Fujifilm X-H2. While the continuous autofocus works very well, one thing you may notice in my previous test is that there is some noticeable focus breathing. If you look at this focus breathing test, you can see the change in field of view quite easily. The design and size of this lens is very similar to the other TTArtisan Autofocus f1.8 APS-C lenses that we have reviewed on this channel. It is reasonably compact. It is also quite a bit smaller than the Yongnuo 23mm f1.4 lens that we have just reviewed on this channel. The metal body feels solid. There isn't any switches or buttons on the lens, just a large focus ring. The lens comes with a reversible plastic lens hood that feels quite nice. Front filter thread is 52mm. Just like the other TTArtisan autofocus lens, the rear lens cap that comes with this lens has a USB-C port, so you can use the rear lens cap to update the firmware. If you are a Mac user, just beware that the firmware update software only works on Windows. For a lens that only costs $127, I think the overall image quality of this TTArtisan lens is really not bad. Apart from the corner sharpness that need to stop down quite a bit to become sharp, everything else is pretty decent. I especially like the Sunstars and also the almost lack of chromatic aberration. I also really like how TTArtisan has made some noticeable improvement to the lens flare performance recently. So unless you really need very good corner sharpness, you should be quite happy with the image quality of this TTArtisan lens. Remember, this is a lens with a very budget price. To be honest, I really don't know how TTArtisan can make any money by selling a lens at this kind of price. This is an autofocus lens with full electronic support, f1.8 maximum aperture, and full metal construction. Oh, and the lens also comes with the USB dock for firmware update. Even if we ignore other costs like packaging, shipping, marketing, or the general operation costs of a company, I still think the price of this lens is crazily cheap. For consumers, it is great because we have good quality lens at really budget price. But I do really wonder if this is really sustainable. Anyway, what are your thoughts on this TTArtisan lens, and what do you think about the price of this lens? Let me know your thoughts and drop a comment below. I would love to hear your thoughts.